Good morning. It's Monday morning. Today we read from Matthew 26, and we're picking up in verse 51, right where they've just come up and grabbed Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And behold, one of those who were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then should the Scriptures be fulfilled that it must be so?" At that hour Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs to capture me? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But all this has taken place that the Scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then all the disciples left him and fled. My fourth grade teacher would read this to us out of the Gospel of John, where it says that Peter took his sword and did this, and the slave's name was Malchus. And then she said, I know a woman whose last name is Malchus, and she has a peculiar kind of a notch on her ear. And we all went, ooh. Well, I'm not sure that's the lesson we're supposed to take from this, and I don't know anything about this teacher or her friend or any of that. Could be true, but who knows? But what I do know is that Jesus here teaches us not to react with violence. Now, if there were ever a time when righteous violence would be justified, it's when they come to arrest Jesus. He hasn't done anything wrong. And they come in the middle of the night, the huge crowd of soldiers, and they grab him. And he even says, "I was at the temple every day. If you wanted me, you could have arrested me there, but they don't." But Jesus says to his disciples when they begin to fight back, he says, "Stop. We're not going to do that. Put your sword away. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. You don't want to fight back." Now, there are times when, we do fight back, when some nation attacks our borders, we raise the army and fight back. When bad guys bust into our house at 2 o'clock in the morning, we do the best we can to fight back. A lot of the arguments around gun ownership always get to those 3 o'clock a.m. attackers and how we need to be ready to kill them. But there are times when violence seems justified to us, defending ourselves. And that's kind of what the disciples are doing. They're defending Jesus. But Jesus says, don't stop. Don't do that. You don't need to do that. Let this play out. So he knows what's going to happen. He knows they're going to arrest him and have a trial and crucify him the next day. And in some ways, he's resigned to that. Now, the disciples aren't. They run away. They take off. Their instincts for self-preservation are pretty strong, and they run away. And as I think I mentioned yesterday or Saturday morning, we get into Mark's Gospel, and there's a line right after this passage ends in Mark's Gospel. All of them deserted and fled, and then it says, "A certain young man was following him, wearing nothing but a linen cloth. They caught hold of him, but he left the linen cloth and ran off naked," which reads like a little bit of eyewitness testimony. Mark is kind of saying to us, I was there. Mark's Gospel is Peter's memoirs, if you will, and so it could have been someone else, but it's just inserted there as though Mark is saying, hey, don't forget me. I was there too. So they all run away. They all leave Jesus in the hands of these Romans. And so, there's Jesus caught, arrested, and he kind of pokes at his captors and says, "You could have picked me up any time in the temple. Why did you wait until the middle of the night here?" Well, they knew who he was when he was in the temple teaching. They'd be able to say, that's the guy, that's the teacher, that's the one. But when he's just out of the crowd, out in the city, out of the garden at the middle of the night, they don't know which one he is, perhaps. And they have to work out this whole business with Judas helping them. And this is the way they do it. So this is the way it happened, whether we or Jesus even agrees with it or not. This is what happened, and he is arrested. He'll go immediately to the high priest's house and have a trial, and then back and forth to King Herod and Pilate, and we'll sort all that out over the coming week. Today, though, think about this. How have we betrayed Jesus in our actions? Do we ever stand up and fight when we don't need to? Do we ever run away at the moment of any kind of confrontation when we're called on to stand up for what we believe? Do we sort of give up and give in the moment someone challenges our faith? All of those questions are center around faithfulness and betrayal. And those are difficult things for us. And so think about that today. Pray about that. And tomorrow we'll continue the rest of the story. See you then.